Hello, and a huge thank you to you all. It's such an honor and a great pleasure to be part of ICMI 2020 this year. Even just 1 year ago, I could not have imagined that I would be a part of this. So thank you to Mike Buchanan, Ken Jolivet, and the others that have invited me to be a part of this and made this event a reality for all of you watching, other speakers, and myself. Those of you watching this on video right now, I'm dressed a little daggy in my hoodie, but this piece of clothing is incredibly symbolic to me, as it's the same piece of clothing I was wearing when I first showed my face on the internet outside of personal social media accounts. So it shares a very special place in my heart, as it was part of the first moments of my journey that led me to be speaking to you here today. I'll do my absolute best to make this as memorable and valuable for all of you as I can. Also, just as a caveat, I may make some generalizations today, but they are generalizations because they are generally true and not absolutist blanket statements. I will also be referring to men going their own way as MGTOW so as to avoid shadow banning by online algorithms by the feminist thought police should this video make it to YouTube. We are living in insane times. Since everything seems to be so politicized these days, and Trump has no doubt been reelected a few weeks ago by the time you watch this video. But if he hasn't, I guess my prediction was wrong. I thought I'd use a metaphor to broach today's topic, which is life is a ballot box. Vote in your own best interests. You see, I yearn for a peaceful world one day. And when I say peaceful, I mean as peaceful as possible. Absolute peace is a fool's goal. When what gives one person peace creates chaos, heartache, and destruction in another's life, in this instance, peace for that one person is antithetical to collective peace, or peace for them. This concept plays out in family separations all the time, and there are almost always exceptions to every rule, where a mother gets the kids and the father is kept away so more child support can be obtained from him. Best financial outcome for the mother, not necessarily best outcome overall. Worst outcome for the father and kids. Her outcome is relatively peaceful. His and the kids' outcome, soul-destroying and tumultuous. The same applies in the reverse in instances where it happens, which is far less common by my observations, but it does occur. Understand that everything I talk about makes sense when viewed in the context of everyone being selfish. When we act in our own self-interests, we usually end up happier and healthier than if we were always on someone else's goal plan. The only time you should be on someone else's goal plan is when it unequivocally aligns with your own. For example, supporting your kid in doing a high demand trade if that's their desire, rather than getting a bachelor's degree in sociology, philosophy, psychology, anthropology, social justice, gender studies, or any other number of humanities degrees now taught by largely mentally ill, rabid, purple-haired rhinoceri and men with testosterone counts lower than the mercury in an Antarctic winter blizzard. Is not only supporting their goal plan, but supporting your own desire to see your child happy, prosperous, financially stable, and self-sufficient in a job with no shortage of income opportunities, with the added side benefit that they aren't indoctrinated into radical left-wing political activist causes. By the way, while I mention it, it is on both your goal plan and the goal plan of your children to make sure your child memorizes both the mother and father's mobile phone number at the earliest possible point in their life, under the guise of, if there's ever an emergency. So if there is ever a separation orchestrated by someone with malicious intent, the child can call and say, "Where are you and why aren't you here?" And they can know the truth straight off the bat, rather than suffering for years, sometimes decades, sometimes a lifetime. I truly believe that this advice applied en masse could be the most powerful tool against parental alienation that the world has ever seen. Let's make sure we teach kids. Open quote. I want you to remember our numbers So if you ever get lost or can't find one of us, whether it be in the street or somewhere else, you always have a way to contact us so we can find each other. End quote. You can make your own adaptation of that, of course, but something along those lines. Make sure you teach your siblings, nieces, nephews, and kids you babysit how to reach the people most important to them, both of their parents. I believe this is our civic duty to empower kids in this way to not only feel safe, but also have a lifeline to the truth about the reality of their life and their life's circumstances. Last thing you say to them if you ever get this call is, "What's my phone number again?" And then when they repeat it to you, say, "Bingo, I love you. Bye for now." And the reason I say that is because "bye for now" is something my father says to me even to this day in his 70s. Every voicemail he ever left me closes with "bye for now." I don't know if he realizes it, but that signals to me that it's not the last time we'll speak. That gives me so much peace. Now, to segue back to the topic of selfishness, we are all selfish, every single one of us. Even the most selfless of us are here because we want to be. That word want, it seems so innocuous and even a little self centered, and you'd be right. Every single decision we make, whether conscious or unconscious, is driven by what we desire. Sometimes it's driven by the desire to be a people pleaser. Sometimes it's driven by the desire to get us ahead. Sometimes it's driven by a primal urge. Sometimes it yields amazing results, and sometimes it yields disastrous results. Sometimes we don't know what it's driven by, but we do know what we want. Yeah, I know someone who hates the Labor government in Australia, which is the Australian equivalent of the Democrat Party. While he will still vote for someone else at federal countrywide elections, he will vote for Labor on a state level. Why? Why would he do that, you ask? He's a police officer and he has a family and a mortgage. So he'll be voting for them in the state election because they promised not to make any changes to overtime for New South Wales police. Overtime for public servants can be quite lucrative, and who doesn't want to get ahead for their family, right? Now, whether they keep their promises on re-election or not is a totally different point of contention. The point is, however, that he went against his own political conscience to prioritize his higher purpose of ensuring the long-term financial interests of his wife and dependent children. The best way to understand where someone's allegiances lie, their personal allegiances, is by understanding what is more important to them in life than anything else. If that something is love and validation, they will betray their own best interest to try and obtain that. This is why we see lonely men and women alike being swindled day in and day out by callous opportunists who understand that the primary driver of their targets is to have a partner and make that person happy at all costs in order to keep them so they don't have to be alone and feel lonely. The people manipulating for gain may have family overseas or kids they're trying to support, a gambling habit they don't want to deal with the consequences of. They might even just be greedy. They might just want to buy stuff that they can't afford themselves. And they use the other person to acquire financial gain to feed their own primary needs and motivations. Your life at this very moment is a product and a culmination of the decisions you've made up until now. And every single decision you've made has been out of selfishness. And that's not a bad thing. Quite often, our worst decisions are guided by an attempt to please others or to try not to be quote unquote selfish, or in a pursuit of a quick fix of things we don't like in our lives. The thing that often exacerbates these poor decisions is the fear that we may fail or that things aren't working out the way that we expected them to or hoped they would. This can manifest in many forms, such as bowing out of or going through with something we really should see through or shouldn't see through, or committing to something that doesn't serve us at all. See, our subconscious is the driver of most of the decisions we make automatically, spontaneously, and even consciously. With that said, if our subconscious mind is in a mess, can we really expect anything more than our lives being a mess to some degree? Now, that's not to say that everyone's life is in a mess if their head isn't in the right place. It is to say that far too often, though, that is the case. Some of you listening may not agree with this, and that's okay. Just let me ask you, were you always absolutely conscious of where all of your life decisions would lead you to, all the way down to basic tasks and actions and words? I wasn't, and I'll never have that level of consciousness. None of you will ever be that aware on a constant basis from the moment you wake up until the moment you sleep. To expect that I could maintain that level of constant critical analysis over every moment and every thought in my life would not only be completely unrealistic, it would drive me insane. That said, I am far more conscious of the way my choices impact me than I used to be. I've made a lot of silly mistakes in my life, and it would be accurate to say that if I hadn't made them, I would potentially be way further ahead, career-wise, financially, and with respect to my relationship with my only sibling. Do I regret it? Well, sure, some things could have been done differently, but a person is the sum of their experiences. Without the experiences and learnings I've had up until this point, I wouldn't be here speaking with you right now. That I'm endlessly grateful for my path in life having taken the form that it has up until now, along with its dips and highs. Some of my silly mistakes led to the breakdown of my marriage in 2017. My lack of foresight, combined with a lack of understanding of what women need to feel valued in a relationship. Here's a hint, guys, it's not the provision of money. Different people need different things to feel loved. It's so important that you understand the 5 love languages, as this will impact all of your relationships, professional and personal. Although some love languages would best be avoided in a professional setting or if it crosses someone else's boundaries in a personal setting. Those 5 love languages are physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, and quality time. If someone is constantly giving you gifts or expecting gifts from you, that's their love language, and it's probably also how they like to receive love. If someone is very cuddly all the time, well, then their love language is probably physical touch. If someone just wants to be present with you all the time and have you present with them, quality time is most likely their love language. Some people have got a combination of more than one. If someone you meet is very dominant in both quality time and gifts as their love languages, be very careful. Why? Because unless you have an endless pit of money, you're going to need to work more hours to buy gifts, which means less quality time. Or you're going to need to buy less gifts so you can afford to work less and therefore give more quality time. Either way, it's a losing bet to be embroiled in such a predicament. Some of you may remember a song from Jennifer Lopez, now named J-Lo, called Love Don't Cost a Thing. And I'd just like to share a little excerpt from it. She says, "When I took a chance, thought you'd understand, baby, credit cards aren't romance. So you're trying to buy what's already yours. What I need from you is not available in stores. Seen a side of you that I really feel. Doing way too much, never keep it real. If it doesn't change, got to hit the road. Now I'm leaving with my keys. Sorry, it says, now I'm leaving. Where's my keys? I've got to go. All that matters is that you treat me right. Give me all the things I need that money can't buy." You see, if what attracts a person to another is a tangible asset, I can promise you that's not what is going to make them happy in the long run, and the relationship will not last. My marriage was miserable in the end because I wasn't the husband my ex-wife needed me to be. She also wasn't what I had expected of a spouse. even if just on a subconscious level. I have a saying: expectations are the breeding grounds of resentment. If you expect something of someone and they don't deliver, that can and often does breed resentment, disappointment, sadness, and several other negative emotions. Most of what ended up making me miserable was the fact that things didn't turn out the way I had anticipated or expected them to be, creating a feeling of loneliness and sadness that was not on anybody else but me. I don't wish to speak ill of my ex wife, as she has a beautiful soul, and I do regret the pain I caused through failures in the marriage on my part. Regretfully, however, I predict that in the absence of the collective knowledge of the manosphere, the relationship would have ended regardless, even if more amicably under different circumstances in the long term. Oh, the irony that one often needs to go through a painful separation in order to discover the truth about why it occurred after it occurred. I know consciously why the breakdown happened, but I didn't understand the driving forces behind those behaviors and patterns in order to be able to address them until it was far too late. Quite often, we're not ready for the truth until it slaps us square in the face. Don't be mad at your fellow man for not being ready for a harsh dose of reality, even when they need it. Will Smith said in his song, Just the Two of Us, throughout life, people will make you mad, disrespect you, and treat you bad. Let God deal with the things they do, because hate in your heart will consume you too. This is a very deep point of reflection, even if you are not religious. Even the most respected people on earth are sometimes disrespected and disrespectful. I still remember when I went to boarding school in Sydney, Australia, and the man who ran the boarding house went by the name Peter Borsman, a gentleman, a kind man, a generous man. He gave of himself until and even after people disrespected him, he kept giving. This continued until he'd had enough of his good nature being taken advantage of. He killed himself. I will never forget the morning I heard the announcement. There was a Chinese kid in the year below me. His name escapes me, but his face lives on in my memory forever. And while we had not spoken often, when we did, the respect was obvious and mutual. We were both walking along the corridor at my school in the hours after the announcement of Peter's passing, and as we rounded the corner, we came face to face. I looked into his eyes and saw his pain. He threw his arms around me, gripped me tight, and screamed with hurt as he cried his lungs out, tears pouring down his cheeks. This broke me down and I started bawling my eyes out as well. I've never seen so many young men cry in mourning over the death of an individual. He was loved by so many beyond words. The impact of a man's passing goes well beyond the individual. So if any of you are listening considering a voluntary departure from this earth, I implore you, please reach out to a trusted friend and tell them what troubles you. Just might save your life. Now, some of you may wonder what was the moment that broke Peter. Somebody stole his Walkman out of the glove box of his car after he took a group of boarding kids to McDonald's and shouted them all a meal, something he did on a regular basis out of his own pocket. I don't doubt that it's not the first thing stolen from him. He was well off, but that doesn't mean that he deserves to have those things taken from him just because he can afford to buy a new one. He was found deceased the next morning with his car running and a hose running from the exhaust pipe into the cabin of his car. He expected that people wouldn't do that to him. Never assume that even the ones you love won't hurt you. Do make plans to mitigate it against it happening. Hope for the best and plan for the worst. Set boundaries. When we allow people to engage in behaviors that negatively impact us, it can result in us being resentful and even hateful. There's a lady called Brene Brown who said, open quote, "I'd rather be loving and generous and be very straightforward with what's okay and what's not okay," end quote. I implore you to ask yourself of the people that you are upset with or disappointed with in your lives. What if this person is doing the best they can? You see, I never know if people are doing the best they can or not. But when I assume people are, it makes my life better. Brene says, open quote, "To assume the best about people is almost an inherently selfish act because the life you change first is your own," end quote. She also says, "What boundaries need to be in place for me to stay in my integrity and make the most generous assumptions about you? But generosity can't exist without boundaries, and we are not comfortable setting boundaries because we care more about what people will think and we don't want to disappoint anyone. We want everyone to like us, and boundaries are not easy, but I think they're the key to self-love, and I think they're the key to treating others with loving kindness. Nothing is sustainable without boundaries," end quote. I very much agree with this sentiment. And many of you may know me from my YouTube channel, Sydney MGTOW. I started it over 3 years ago now, promoting the uh, lifestyle of men simply going their own way philosophy and alerting men to how dangerous being involved in a legally recognized relationship with women can be for your life in the long term, particularly if they don't respect you. I had recently gone through my marriage separation and discovered the manosphere by chance on YouTube. I had initially encountered people like Sandman, MGTOW 101, Howard Dare, and our very own Paul Elam. Not everything I came across resonated, but much of it did, and helped me to make sense of what had occurred before, during, and after my separation, as well as past relationships. The veil had finally been lifted. The catalyst for creating my channel and my first video was wanting to rant about an individual who seemed to feel entitled to respect while simultaneously disrespecting others without first being respectable in order to earn it. Hence, my first video name being "Respect is Earned, Not Owed." In my separation, I'd lost my wife, her family, and all my close friends, bar a very tiny few. I didn't want to burden my family with the weight of it if I could avoid it. Everyone but a rare few turned on me. Even those people I was reluctant to trust because I couldn't handle any more hurt. I was homeless, friendless, rudderless, and aimless overnight. I even had the intention to remain homeless for a year. Why? Well, self-loathing, I guess. You know, we often punish ourselves when we feel like we've failed others. Please, please stop doing that. Have a higher level of compassion for yourselves than you extend to others. When I started to go down the rabbit hole and the only people that still spoke to me hadn't, I couldn't really talk to them about the stuff going on. Typically speaking, I found men have a proclivity to be more solutions focused, and the solution I needed at that moment in time was to get this off my chest without anyone judging me or trying to rationalize it so that I could start to rationalize it and get out of my emotion. Why? Well, truth be told, I didn't know what to do about what was pissing me off other than vent. The internet seemed to be the perfect outlet. Also, because it's YouTube, if what I said resonated with anyone, they could listen. They could also completely disregard me and move on, and I'd be none the wiser. With this newfound fervor for expressing myself to anyone who wanted to listen, I began to create more videos, sometimes a few a week, sometimes daily. Over time, they became daily whenever practical. My following exploded in the following months. Now, my selfish motivations for my channel were that it was initially an outlet. Then, as I started to get subscribers and more comments, I would enjoy responding to the engagement on my videos, and that became my selfish motivation. One of the primary driving motivations, however, that has remained constant throughout became very evident very early in the piece: to help men reclaim their place in the world and flourish. That is something I very much hope to inspire many of you to do today, especially if you're new to this space and looking for ways to better navigate the world as a man. I never truly understood the level of impact I was having until I started getting emails like what I'm about to share with you. And I want to share 3 or 4 excerpts with you. May even be 5. I've added a couple, so I'm not sure. This first one came much earlier in the piece and was a big part of my catalyst for continuing, even in the face of YouTube's attempts to silence me through removing monetary incentive via ad revenue. No thanks to the SPLC, a radical leftist activist organization and one of YouTube's trusted flaggers who hit men going TOW content creators with a mass demonetization overnight when I was roughly at 10,000 subscribers. And they have falsely designated an ear for men as a registered hate group. Imagine that. This, of course, did not deter me because here I am and have more than tripled my subscriber count since then. So why did I continue? Why did I continue when they were trying to silence me and it was starting to get hard? Well, here's the reason. This was never about money for me. Sure, it helps to cover my costs and get equipment to produce more and more high quality content for you guys and girls, because I do have some female followers as well. But if I didn't have that, I'd still be making videos from my phone in my car. Here's the first email that I was referring to. And some of these emails I've tweaked slightly just so that it flows a little bit better, but this is a pretty good paraphrase. Your videos have made a huge difference in my life. I'm starting a new life and have a new friend going through a brutal divorce too. I feel so strong and unstoppable after someone tried to ruin me and it didn't work. Karma came through, for I had a lot of support. I can tell you're a fellow good guy and you've motivated me to help other men. Thanks so much. Second email reads, after what happened to me, I was looking on YouTube and I came across your page and started to listen to you and then checked out all the other manosphere channels that you suggested. And it opened up my eyes to the BS that I was being taught from a very young boy and how it allowed my ex to walk all over me and treat me like dirt. I honestly believe if I didn't find your channel and didn't listen to you, I would either be back on the plantation unhappy or I would not be here at all. You changed my life, and for this, I will always be grateful. I'm not a rich man, and I wish I had the money to support you money wise, but I can't afford to. So I just wanted to tell you my story and thank you for saving my life and sanity. And I wish that you keep doing it and keep helping other men with this. And I'm trying to do the same in my circle. See, this ripple effect is very, very powerful. When you help someone, they pay it forward, especially when you change their life and they can replicate that with other people. The third one says, I've sent you $50 on PayPal, but what you've done for me is priceless. You may have even saved my life. Or at the very least, you've pulled me out of depression and I'm actually happy again. On doing more research on MGTOW, I'm now happy. It's as if a ton of bricks have been lifted off my shoulders and now I'm free. I've defined what I want to do with the rest of my life and excited to start this new journey. I know it's late in life for me, and the problems out there are for the younger generation. I have two sons aged 15 and 16 and was extremely worried about how their future might be. Knowing there's support networks out there for men reduces that worry a lot. Please don't stop what you're doing. You're helping a lot of men. Can you see how this lights me up inside? Why I keep doing this? Number 4. Hey, bro. Another MGTOW from beautiful Florida, USA. Just wanted to say I appreciate your content. Several years ago, you actually saved my life. I lost confidence in myself thinking I was not good enough. You helped me get my head back in the game of self-enlightenment and understanding the truth that was wasting countless energy on many girls who never cared about me. So with my self-confidence rechanneled back into me, I've obtained a job that has bettered my life with many opportunities to grow. So thank you, Sydney. Another thing I noticed in the difference between you and the guy in the picture, I don't know which guy it is, was referring to a video. The guy's soccer ball head that you could probably score a goal with. Keep up the good work. So it turns out that there was five emails that I was going to share. And here's the last one for you. And this is the most recent. And I had this dropped as a comment in my chat on one of my videos. He said, honestly, you saved my life. I was very close to taking it earlier this year after a sexual allegation made me lose a lot of clients and to spend thousands in legal fees. Going to therapy. Thanks, man. So I actually responded to him in the live video and I told him to reach out to me, and he has reached out to me. I'm going to be speaking to him in a day or two and actually having a conversation with him and seeing if I can, help with some mentoring, and maybe that's what he needs, not therapy. You don't. I want to find out whether this therapist is male friendly and whether they're actually getting him on his goal plan and not just the textbook goal plan of whatever they learned at university. So I hope that yields positive results. No doubt it will. He says in the email, and just to give you a bit of context, he was Me Too'd at work where he was a contractor, and she said, pay me 150,000, to paraphrase, pay me 150,000 and I'll drop the charges. 150,000 US dollars. So with that context in mind, he says, it was an extremely stressful time for me. So when I found your channel, like, honestly, you saved me. Like, you really saved me. And I started to look at your content. I'm like, wow, I'm not alone. There are people going through the exact same thing I'm going through. From that point on, I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to just sit down and just bitch and complain. I'm going to fucking get myself out of this situation, because I realized, and it took a big red pill to swallow, that in law court, no one will help you. No one will help you. You are there for yourself. All you have is yourself. And it took me a long time to realize that. Now, this is 10 months later, and my company's barely made anything, but honestly, like, I've been able to pick myself up, do a lot better. And 2 weeks ago, the case was dropped. Yes. The case was dropped. I want to thank you for what you've done for me, because honestly, I feel like my life has meaning more than it did before. Because when I was younger, I always wanted to not work a 9 to 5. I wanted to build my own business so I would have the flexibility and time to do what I want. And after spending 9 years building that, I thought I was just going to lose it all like that, and my life wouldn't mean anything. But you made it mean something. So I just want you to know that you changed my life. Now, if that particular gentleman is watching, I want him to know, and all of the other people that sent me emails, you changed your own lives, gentlemen, by making a decision. Because when things get tough, it's not a dead end. These shares were so powerful because of the thing that these testimonials have in common, these heartwarming testimonials from 5 different individuals. The decision to start acting in one's own self-interests, on their own goal plan. It's only when we make the choice as men to make a difference in our own lives that things start to change, because nobody's going to come and rescue us. So stop waiting around for something that won't happen. Also, if you're, on a side note, if you're navigating a very challenging situation with a vindictive woman, record everything. Get a spy pen and have it sitting out your top pocket. Back up the footage. Keep it forever. 2 words. Brett Kavanaugh. Now, I've always told people to be the change they want to see in the world. All of the speakers here today have been invited because they are the change they and a lot of other people want to see in the world. They are leading by example, even if they don't realize the impact they are making. It even feels weird for me saying that about myself because, I never did this to be a leader. I never did this to be someone that people actually follow and listen to and take the advice of. I was just a dude who wanted to get something off my chest on the internet, but here I am. I'm just so glad that I've been able to help men like this. Like, there's no words to express how that makes me feel, honestly. We need, this is my personal view, we need more people like us with a voice, with conviction of character, with the desire to bulldoze the absolute BS and lies in the mainstream media, in the education system, in our institutions, and come through with the truth that people need to hear to start feeling like there's hope and that there's a very important role on this earth for them to fulfill, whether that is as a friend, a family member, a parent, a child, an aunt, an uncle, an auntie, or just or anyone else, anyone, whoever that person may be that you are to someone else, you matter in that capacity, and we need you. Start giving a crap about the only person that can never go anywhere on you, which is yourself. Understand your inherent value as a person. Refuse to tolerate disrespect, and people will respect you more. Do not accept being belittled or berated. Stand up for yourself. Exhibit respectable behaviors, and people will respect you more. Your life starts and ends with you. Make it count. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Happy International Men's Day, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. And if this is your first time coming across me and you want to follow more of my work, youtube.com/Sydney MGTOW is where you can find me. If you want to reach out to me for mentoring or help, SydneyMGTOW@gmail is how you can reach me. Thanks again, Mike. Thanks again, Ken. And thank you to all of the people that have made ICMI 2020 possible. I salute you all. I appreciate you all. And peace.